have you ever heard it takes a village? In event production, this is no different. In this episode, we're going to share with you what these positions do. And this includes some of the better known positions, but also some of the lesser known positions. Tim and Tim Talks starts now. So who are they? What are they doing there? Why are there so many people? In this episode, we're going to find out. And of course, I can't do this alone. Tim Kerbavaz, please come join. There you are, as always.
Hey Tim, great to be here with you as always. And of course, joining you remotely in our socially distant remote production way. You know, walking the walk here. We are walking the walk as we have been for the past year. Thankfully though, it looks like there is some sun on the horizon. We're excited. We're starting to, get calls and inquiries to get back on the field. And I know you are too. So hopefully we can do this in person someday soon. It's exciting. We're looking at those in-person events on the horizon and all of those people coming back to a theater or a ballroom. What do all those people do, Tim? Who are all these people that we're bringing into a room together to do our event production? Don't you get like that question when you're on site and then the client comes up and like, who are all these people? What are they doing? Well, in this episode, let's talk about this. Who are these people? And what's cool, this is a special treat for the audience in this one too, because not only who are they, but in real life, we're going to show these positions and what they do and what it actually looks like. Yeah, so let's bring up some slides. I think we got some visual aids here. Let's go and see what those look like. Tim, did we do our homework again? Oh, look at that. We got some slides, and I think we even have some photos here. 2 for 2 on accomplishing our homework. This is awesome. But yeah, so this is going to be great here. Production roles and titles. And we're going to make this episode really special and unique is the fact that we're going to show you all of these positions from a bunch of different jobs and gigs that we've done throughout both of our career here. So let's start, Tim, at the top. Event planners. I mean, this one's pretty self-explanatory, right? This one's in the title. It is, and I think, honestly, a lot of the folks watching this are going to find this role fits what they do. But, this is the person who's responsible for the event vision, for managing all the stakeholders, for finding vendors, managing the client and vendor relationship. And this role can kind of bridge that kind of client side and then bringing in that vendor side relationship. This is a very key bridged position here in this one, right? So this is, as you say, right, they are the ones that can speak both languages very well of understanding the client. Oftentimes the event planners within the company that we work with, they speak the language perfectly. They understand the lingo, the deadlines, the pressures, but they also speak a little bit of production too, which makes it a great event planner is so key for a great and smooth position. So yes, at the top, event planners. And that person, that event planner, is going to talk to our next position, your production manager or your producer. These faces look familiar. I don't quite know why yet, though. Yeah, look at those. I wonder who those folks are. So your project manager, your producer, is going to be often on your vendor side and going to be running your production. So this is a person who's responsible for, bringing in subcontractors and, overseeing the overall production, whether that's, everything from sort of scenic to, technical side. Absolutely. So this is the one that the maestro that makes all of the production talk to one another and also other departments, other vendors as well. Right. Navigating between those departments. So the next person we want to talk about is somebody who, speaking of orchestration, is sort of the orchestra director for the event. So this one right here, this one gets a little under the radar here, the stage manager and show caller, right? Sometimes people feel like the producer can do this position, but on shows that are big enough or complicated enough, this is a standalone, super important position, right? It is, and I think, sometimes we see this in virtual events, sometimes we don't, but at the bigger in-person events, we always want to have a stage manager or a show caller who is, as I said, sort of the conductor of the show and is calling all those cues, is running through what we call the run of show, the show flow, and keeping everybody on track. And so this person is not operating equipment. They're not, dealing with specific technical details. They're making sure that the show is flowing in the direction that we want it to, and they're giving people their cues as to what happens next. So they're really directing the actual flow of the performance at the show.
That is the most important position on bigger shows that that we work on together, is having that show caller or stage manager, sometimes interchangeable, right? Those cues that they're calling are really important. They're getting the lighting board. Okay, get your cue 17. Okay, we're gonna go to videotape roll number 13. Who else is there? We have a stinger. Make sure mic 4 is going to be hot. Every one of these lines in transitions has about 6 or 7 different sub cues in them, maybe even more. And it is this role that is responsible for them all. And who do they often talk to? Well, that's the next role. Who is this one, Tim?
So our video director or camera director is the person who's calling the camera. So while the show caller or stage manager is in charge of, calling all of the various cues in all departments, the video director is specifically calling what cameras are going to stream or to screen. And so this person is, choosing which camera angles go where, telling the camera operators to get another shot, and really kind of picking out what the audience is seeing in that video broadcast.
Absolutely. They are definitely like the director, as you would say, and they are making sort of that aesthetic choices visually for that, and which in itself, right, it has 3 cameras or 5 cameras or 8 cameras. It is a very busy position with a lot of different cues, and on top of that, you're now directing every single camera operator within that. So it's very important. It is the look of your show right there. But so similar to that, our next one here, our technical director, switcher op, view. Tim, break down. There's a lot of terms on this one page. Why do we have so many terms on this one slide alone?
So you and I went back and forth about this when we were building this slide deck, and how do we describe what this position is when there's in many ways different words that mean the same thing? And so in the broadcast world, the technical director is the person who operates the video switcher. In events, sometimes we call them the switcher operator or the V1. The reason we have these different terms is in the events world, in the theater world, I should say, which Event World often draws from, the technical director is a different role. And so when we use the word technical director, we have to be clear. Are we talking about the person who's cutting the show on the switcher, or are we talking about a different position that we'll get into in a bit?
Absolutely. The technical director switcher. Now, on smaller shows, the video director and the switcher operator and the V1 potentially are, oftentimes they will be the same the same person. So if it's only like 1 or 2 cameras and it's it's a breakout room, oftentimes these different roles will all funnel down to one person. That's perfectly fine. For this show that we did here, I mean, this was a big, massive show. So each one of these positions were broken out, and it made a very big difference for a very smooth show. So yeah, absolutely. Different worlds, different lingo, but same role, same position.
And to be clear, Tim, the reason that you would have a separate video director and a technical director who's actually pushing the buttons is when there's a lot of decisions that have to be made, when there's a lot of cameras to choose from, particularly in the sports world, but in more complicated broadcasts, maybe an award show where you have multiple possible winners, nominees who might be the winner. The video director is the person who's watching all the sources come in and making the split-second decisions as to what camera to take, and the technical director is ready to push the button at the right time so that you kind of separate the decision making and sort of artistic decision from being really quick to hit the button.
So having been in that sports world, having worked for professional broadcast, for that TV trucks that have gone on to do the World Series, to do the NBA Finals, the directors are fast cutting, right? So a typical sort of cadence that will happen inside of that truck is like, okay, ready 2, take 2, ready 4, 4. Pan left, okay, ready 2. I'm going to come out to 3 after 4. Literally, that's how the director is talking. Literally just talking numbers. And the TD who's actually pushing it, they don't care what's in front of them. They are just looking down. So this is often sometimes we don't see in the events world is much more scripted than in the sports world. But like you said, awards, busy shows, absolutely.
Yeah, we talk about technical director. This is the other kind of technical director that we're talking about. In the theater and the events world, we often say technical director when we mean the person who's in charge of everything technical for the event. So we talked about a producer who's in charge of the whole event. And the technical director is in charge of all the technology. And so, while the producer is worried about everything from the audience experience perspective and sort of oversees the technical director is specifically worried about what the technology that we have on site, the various technology vendors, the labor management, and making sure that what happens on stage matches that audience experience that the producer envisioned.
And this is a real world show that, that we were on in Moscone Center, right? So this is what a general session backstage, at Moscone Center actually looks like. And so I think that this is only, if there was more real estate in this image, on the other side of the projector, you'll see even more technology. What we're not seeing is we're not seeing A1 world, we're not seeing A2 world. I don't think we're seeing the projector station right here. So basically, we're only seeing, cameras, graphics, video playback, and just a few other ones. But there's even more that the camera wasn't wide enough to show. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of pieces that need to talk to each other.
And this is all in the purview of that technical director. And then something that's really relevant on our virtual events as we do things with remote guests, and I think as we get into hybrid events, we're going to see these positions in person as well. Our contribution or inbound call manager, we use both terms interchangeably. This is the person who manages your remote video presenters, their cameras and presentation feeds, their mics, making sure that their audio and camera, looks and sounds good, and making sure that, they stay connected. So getting them dialed in, whether that's via Zoom or Teams or, legacy video conference technology, but kind of however we get them into the system, this is the person who kind of manages all those feeds coming into your video production.
Relatively new position. Like you said, we're going to probably see this more as hybrid events. We'll find out soon. But relatively straightforward on this one. And yeah, this is a very key one here, and making sure that the AV and everything works and looks and sounds good. All right.
And so moving on, a graphics operator. This is a really simple graphics setup. This was from a smaller event that I worked on, and really graphics is often as simple as just, a couple of PowerPoint decks, but can be as complicated as, multiple PowerPoint separate decks on separate computers and some Keynote decks on a Mac, and then, maybe even content off of, playback systems. But, at its core, the graphics operator rather is in charge of the slide decks on a show. And so making sure that the right deck is open at the right time, making sure that the clickers click when they're supposed to click, and
that's a big
sometimes
one.
Advancing on speakers' behalf when they're following a script.
That's the most challenging when you're a graphics operator and you are basically anticipating and waiting for that green arrow when the presenter has clicked the button. When sometimes some of our producers require that it's actually the operator that pushes the button when that green arrow goes. They do not want it to be done automated. They're like, that's why you're there. You have to push the button. And boy, it's a long, hard day when you have to you're anticipating and waiting for 200, 300 clicks, and you have to be on top of it. It is extremely, probably the most important position. The whole show is based on graphics and a presentation. Literally everyone's coming there to hear a presentation. The graphics operator is the one in charge of driving that presentation.
And this is a really critical role, and sometimes it involves fixing things, right? Like the presenter says, all my fonts are wrong, and so
it happens all the time.
Exactly. Got to figure out where all those fonts went, make sure things look right, make sure any edits that get made before the show get reflected in the final deck. So it is, as Tim said, a very critical position and one of the unsung heroes of the production, and not necessarily a glamorous one. Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, but before you go to the next slide here, I would say the other thing that you mentioned in that is oftentimes in shows, we do not have the presenters bring their own computers. It is a computer already established like that. If you were presenting, Tim, you would come back to us with your slide deck, on a USB stick, and then we would open it up on our computer. We oftentimes, as you said, don't have fonts or the other key ingredients, but it's also more important to use the computer that the show has given you versus bringing your own. There's less distractions, less pop-ups. We know everything works. It's usually an over-spec'd machine, so it won't crash. So
that's a good point, Tim. And we mentioned things like pop-ups and things that are running in the background. How many times have you seen somebody's laptop, on a Zoom call, they're screen sharing, and they get Slack messages or Teams messages that pop up on screen? And so when we talk about a show computer, we're talking about a laptop or a desktop that's designed for one specific role or task on that show. And so when we're talking about a graphics computer, it's just running PowerPoint.
You haven't mentioned my favorite pop-up. Would you like to update?
The updates, the Windows updates, the antivirus updates, it just,
yes.
One of the things that we do on show computers is just turn all of that off. Just notifications off, and we don't have things like Slack or Teams or things on graphics machines because we don't want to even have the possibility that those things pop up or make noise or have distractions during the show. It's really just PowerPoint or Keynote or Google Slides, and that's it.
And that's oftentimes why most of the time, yours is an anomaly. Most of the shows that we do are Mac-based, just because they have less pop-ups. So Tim, as we promised the audience, this was a complete, exhaustive list of basically every single position that you will find in a... What? Oh. Tim, we forgot the camera operators.
And the audio engineers.
Oh my goodness, we still got PA and catering and I'll tell you what, Tim, how about this? You and I, let's go ahead and finish this list up, and then for the audience, same time, next week, let's finish this all up. This will be awesome.
And for what we've gotten you so far, if you have questions, please leave us a comment or hit us up on our socials.
We would love to hear from you, please.
We'd love to hear from you. And if you liked what you saw so far, if you could give us a like on the platform, it gives us a little boost.
Absolutely.
And with that, I'm Tim.
And I am Tim.
And we talked. See you next time.
Bye-bye.